Let's talk a bit about the strategy and techniques needed to prepare a CAD drawing for use with a facilities management system. In this specific case, we're using a DWG file that was produced from a PDF. While you are likely to get much better results using the drawings produced by an architect or a laser measuring firm, what we have here should be perfectly adequate to get started with categorization and assignment of space, placing assets, doing measurements, and most other facilities tasks. The drawing we have here is pretty small, so let's see how quickly we can get the floor and the major spaces identified and polylined. Before we actually get started drawing our various boundaries, let's do a couple of things to make our lives a bit easier. First and foremost, we want to turn off the things that are not to be considered when we're drawing our boundaries. So you'll see that we've got a rectangle and a couple of lines here. These things were generated by the IDN platform's drawing preparation. Just helps to identify the boundaries of the things we want showing once this is actually in the facilities management system itself. So we can turn those off with a lay off command. Alternatively, of course, we could just bring up the layer controls. The next thing we want to do is just kind of browse around the floor to make sure we understand what we're actually going to be doing here. So obviously we're going to have a floor polyline on the very outside, the exterior floor gross. We will also want an interior gross, and then we need to consider what spaces here are actually being polylined. So if we just sort of trace our mouse around here, we can see that from this little elevator area here, there is a doorway into one area here. It looks like we've got a second one here, and then a third one over here. So we have three big spaces here that we want to polyline. This could be considered a set of suites, of course, with smaller spaces within, but in our case, we're actually just going to go ahead and identify these as big spaces. In addition to those three big areas, looks like we have an elevator lobby, the elevator area itself, the stairs, and then perhaps one other little area down here that looks to be a service elevator. Now that we have sort of a general idea of what we're trying to do, we also want to look at the lines themselves that we're going to be using. Now, this will not be the case for every drawing that you come across, but this one has widths for everything. And from experience, I know that this makes things a little bit more difficult in terms of hitting snap points. Anywhere there are thicker lines that are coming together, it starts to be a little bit harder to identify exactly where you're snapping, especially with drawings that have been mechanically produced like this, where the engine that has produced them may have made a whole bunch of small lines. For example, this is actually not one arc, but rather a whole bunch of small lines. Without having everything as thin as possible, it can be hard to understand what we're snapping to. So one of the things we'll do here is we're just going to zoom out. We're going to drag a rectangle across everything. And over here on the right, we're going to find our widths right here. We're going to set this to 0. And now all of those lines should be shrunk down to basically as thin as possible. So you can see, again, this makes this a little bit easier to see that, for example, these two don't quite match up. Not a big deal for our purposes, but again, that's just going to make it a little bit easier to see the snap points. The last little bit of prep you'll want to consider is setting up some layers to use for your polylining. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this particular DWG file was run through the IDN platform's drawing prep, and so it has already created some layers for us. Certainly is a good choice to pick some colors that are going to stand out and be easy to identify. So let's start with our floor layer here. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in on basically any sort of random start point. And as we discussed earlier, one of the things that, of course, you'll need to understand is exactly where these lines actually want to be. And without having a perfect understanding of how this particular building is built, that's going to be a little bit difficult. But as we talked about very early on here, this isn't super important. We're going to get a rough go at this, and we're just going to see how long this takes us. So let's go ahead and start with a PL for polyline, and we're going to just pick any random spot on the outside of the building to get started. And we're not going to be doing a ton of talking here to slow us down too much, but let's go ahead, and you can see that there's sort of a short bit here. We want to go ahead and grab that as a line. The rest of this we will do actually as an arc and come over and find the end point for that. Hit L to go back to line, and let's just make our way around the outside here to come back around to where we were. So all I'm doing is using my mouse wheel. I'm pressing that down in order to pan, and trying to use that to zoom in and out and make sure that I can get as close as possible to the various little intersections and whatever here. You can see this goes pretty quickly, even with this mechanically produced DWG. We still have, of course, pretty good snap points here, so this is really not going to take us all that much time. Now, again, if this needs to be a BOMA or something more accurate, then we're going to need a more accurate drawing. And it may be sort of hard to see some of my snap points here because of the fact that I'm using yellow on white, but hopefully you can see that basically all we've got to do is get fairly close to where we want to be, and we can snap. So again, we have these little short bits here that we're going to use, and then A for arc. Oh, did it just eat it? All right, that's okay. It kind of, I don't know exactly what happened right there. It decided to eat our polyline, but we can just start again and merge them afterwards. So going around, doing an arc from there, and then we'll do a line. And let's come over to the next intersection. So sometimes when we've got big giant arcs like this, it'll be way the heck off, and that's totally fine. Just leave it as it is for right now. We will come back and fix it after we've gotten everything done. So again, all of these things with little corners here, pretty easy. Okay, so here we are back at the beginning, and it looks like we're going to be, again, just a little bit off right there. That's not our fault, though. Actually, that particular one is. I lied. Let's try to get that a little bit more accurate. There we go. And once we're on this last one, we can connect that there. So again, we do have two different polylines here that we do want to connect. Before we do that, let's just come back to this guy right here. So I'm just going to click on it, grab this grip, and just zoom in quickly and just click and snap to basically anything right there. And that's close enough for what we're trying to do. So our polylines are pretty close here, but let's join those together with PE for polyline edit. We're going to click on either one and click J for join, and we'll click on the other one. Now, after we have done that, one thing to look for is whether this command right here is telling us close or open. If it says open, that means we have now established a closed boundary around the entire floor. If that said close, it would mean that we had some gap somewhere and we would need to come back and look at that again. Okay, we're back out at the extent of the drawing. We can see that our exterior floor polyline is established in green, and we're ready to draw the interior floor polyline. Now, while we were drawing the exterior, we came around the outside here of some areas that might be balconies. Now, depending on what the building owner is really trying to accomplish, that exterior polyline maybe should have come around here, and our interior polyline then would come around the inside here. So just for a slight change of pace, we're going to use the alternate method here for the interior polyline. So we're just going to pick sort of an arbitrary start point here, and with just a quick preview of where we're going, we'll get started drawing this polyline here. So anytime we can, of course, we want to just kind of get close to the corner. let the snap do all of the work here. So once again, we want to just sort of take a look at what we're seeing, and depending on exactly what the structure is here, we could come around this so that all of this area here is dropped out, or you may want to snap to a perpendicular and come straight across. We're going to do the first option here. Now, if you misclick while you're trying to get a handle there, you can just do a U and a space, and that will undo that last vertex there. So let's just cut out that little interior wall there and just worry about these exteriors here. So actually, probably want to back that up just a little bit here, and we'll just come straight across this way. Again, there's lots of different considerations here, and we're doing things kind of quickly. Okay, so once again, just get an idea of where you need to be here. We'll come to this line right there, and we'll just go around these corners. So as with our other task before, we are spending a lot of time with the mouse wheel here, using it for panning as well as the zooming. So zoom out to get the context and then decide where you want your line to go. So we're going to come down to this one right here. So when you absolutely have to, you can zoom in a little closer, but the more you can spend time sort of a little bit further out, the quicker this is going to be. And once again, I have accidentally severed that polyline, so just like the first time, it looks like we're going to be making a second one. So here we're going to do a perpendicular, and then we'll drop down and continue. Oop. So again, anytime we make a vertex mistake, we can just use U. We're going to come around what looks to be some sort of column here. Okay, and we got another big arc. And now we're back to here. So as with the last time, we do need to do a polyline edit and join. And once we're done, we should see an open. So we now have established our interior and our exterior polylines. Well, we should probably fix this first. There we go. All right, now we have both of our floor polylines established, and we're ready to draw some space polylines. So first and foremost, let's make sure that our space layer is ready. And let's go ahead and start on some of these common areas here. So the vertical penetrations and the floor common. So real easy here for our stairs. We can just basically snap to some of those same points we were using before. However, I think we're going to drop out this little wall here and deem right up to this line will be part of the stairway. Up to you whether you include things like this. Again, let's just do the same thing we just did on the other side. We'll do over here as well. So real easy. When we get close there, we can just hit C to close, and there's our stairs. Let's go ahead and do this area here. Again, there's some considerations here, whether you want to do this closet separately, etc. We're going to wrap this closet in with what we're doing here. Okay, so let's just come around the wall here. And let's see where this doorway is. So we probably want to just come to here. And is that part of the wall there? That comes to here. We'll just come straight across for ease of use. Again, if you are doing things with BOMA or where you really need precision, we would need to have basically started with a bit better of a source drawing. And let's just drop out the entire space there for our elevators. And remember, we started up in this corner over here, so let's just wrap this up by coming across. We'll go to here and then hit C for close. So there is our elevator lobby area. Here, what we can do is really totally simplify this, and let's just do a rectangle for this area here. So maybe this is its own area here, and we can do a second one here. So that'll get us enough detail in order to be able to click on what looks to be a service elevator lobby and the service elevator itself. Let's do the same kind of really simple thing here for the elevators here. And so now we have the elevators, the elevator lobby, the stairs, and the service areas. So the last thing left to do is to establish what appears to be 3 different polylines, one for this area here, one for this area here, and one for over here. Now, because we already have our floor polylines established, the only sort of decisions to be made are going to be around, what interior walls need to be included and which ones want to be excluded. Let's start here. So in this case, for example, we're going to come here. We're leaving some space that is unpolylined in some of these areas. Again, this is not important for our purposes, where all we want to do is kind of establish the general boundaries. The more accuracy you want, again, the more information we'll need from either a laser measuring firm or the architect or somebody like that. So for the purposes of just setting down assets and being able to highlight spaces, etc., what we're doing right here is going to be perfect. So you can see this is all really easy once we have our interior floor area established. Okay, but we do want to be cognizant of where we are and make sure we're not straying into another suite or space. Now, another strategy here could be to duplicate the floor polyline and explode it and try using that, but I actually find most of the time it's just faster to redraw this rather than doing all the commands to trim the polyline, etc. Okay, and we're back here at our start point. So we can hit C for close, and we've got one of our 3 space polylines done here. Let's go ahead and start another one and decide where we want to start our line. Things are a little bit confusing here. Let's make sure we understand where this boundary is. Okay, so let's start here. The only real consideration about the starting location is just whether or not you're going to forget where you started and either go over an area multiple times or leave a big gap somewhere. Okay, so that's an interior wall, and let's just cut the whole way over to here. That should probably stop here, and so what we want to do is we want to use perp for perpendicular, and move on from there. Okay, so we're going to drop out all of that area there. We want to come the whole way over to, looks like this wall right here. Okay, and that puts us at the end. So we'll do a C for close. And as with the floor polylines, we need to just move that arc. So we just have one more to do. Again, doesn't really matter where we start, but what's going to be easiest for us to see, I think we'll start right here. Looks like we did draw this interior a little bit different than the other ones, but that's okay. Let's just cut it out on this one. Looks like I made a mistake there. I'll do a U for undo. And let's see where we're going to end here. Okay, looks like we can essentially just cut straight across up to here. And there you can see our start point. So now we're done here. So it looks like we were a little bit wonky about our floor polylines here. In this case, we came around the inside. Down here, we came around the outside of that. Either of those may or may not be correct, depending on what those areas actually are. But you can see that in about 15 minutes, we were able to go around and draw all of these polylines. Hopefully for the other floors in this building, we can just basically copy and paste the floor polylines. Perhaps not all of the floors in the building are going to have the same footprint, but I bet we can get a good portion of them done with this. And if there are similar floors directly above and below, maybe even the interior spaces can just be copied and pasted to the other drawing.